One, two, one, two. Sometimes I see the sometimes I see the world for how it really is. I tell myself I'll be the one to make a change in it. I could die tonight and I make it to the sunrise. Then I couldn't heal the pain in it. I'm getting high to forget about the lows. So get a paycheck, spend it all on polo. Designer brands cover up my insecurities. Personally, I ain't nothing but an average Joe though. Now I'm dressing so expensive for no reason. Cold world we living in, it's below freezing. I got some fam who can't afford a coat, so I leave a little paper there before I go. Spend $1,000 on a hotel, they pouring broke. Make me wonder who I'm praying to before the show. This a letter to whoever, I'm just trying to set you free. Remember love if you can't remember me. Dead people on earth after I die. What's the weather like? 1, 3, 5, 7. And I ain't perfect, but I try. Hey, I wonder if I'll maybe get a second life. This time I'ma get it right. What does it mean to be a sensation? Do you have to be sensational? How you know you made it? When you're with Killer Cam watching Paid in Full. I never had good grades in school, but shock the world is what I came to do. I got a song I wanna play for you, so can you sing that back to me?
Can I have your attention?
My name's Quinn Beasley. I'm a 19-year-old circus artist, and I'm here to tell you a story. My story of achieving independence and freedom. Kids, have your parents ever told you not to do something and done it anyways? Yeah. Well, that's been my entire life. Until I was about 18 years old. Example. My mother told me, Quinn, don't touch the stove, it's scalding hot. I just put my hand right on it. Like without a second thought. And this, sadly, is how I've had to learn most of the lessons in my life. But I wouldn't change it for anything because it's made me who I am right now, and I like who I am. And I'm going to tell you guys my story. Growing up, I was very insecure. I'd been diagnosed with ADHD, and I had a hard time focusing in school, which led me to believe that I was stupid because I got bad grades. And I carried this insecurity with me into high school. But when I was 10, my parents put me in a program for kids to learn circus called Circus, also known as Circus West. Amazing program. I loved it. I finally felt like I was above average at something, like I was good at something. I had friends, and it raised my self-esteem a little bit. Except in high school, I got teased for being a part of a circus. I got called circus freak, circus homophobic slur. And when you're that young and that insecure, every word just kind of digs in a little bit deeper. And I just wanted so badly to be accepted that I started using drugs in order to fit in. And it worked. I got more friends. But I was so blinded by this feeling of acceptance that I didn't see that all these people were phonies. They were fake. They didn't care about me. And when my parents found out that I was using drugs at school, they did the one thing that they knew would get my attention, which was taking away my circus training. And training for me, it wasn't just recreation. It was the one place where I could take my anger, my rage, my depression, all those negative emotions and put it into something positive. And without it, I was just lost. I was completely lost. And I had no place to take out this anger, so I ended turning it on myself. And I started cutting, also known as self-injuring. And this is a problem that a lot of people struggle with. I know at least 4 kids in my life right now who are struggling with it, and it needs to be addressed. And every time I would cut, I would feel temporary relief. But when I'd wake up the next morning and see what I'd done to myself, my self-worth would just drop a little bit. I'd become more insecure. And I'd go to school and I'd get called emo. People would tell me I was doing it for attention, that I didn't really have a problem. And I would go home and do it all over again. It was this never-ending cycle until I just got lower and lower and lower, and I was so sick of being in pain. I was so sick of feeling worthless. I just wanted to feel nothing. So I decided that I was going to take my own life. And my mother walked in on me with a noose around my neck. And I was going to do it. And that's when my parents realized how much help I needed, how low I had sunk. So they decided to put me in a program for troubled youth to get help. And they knew that I wouldn't go willingly. So what they did was they told me that we were going on a skiing trip. Yeah. And they said, we need to go to a meeting first. And I said, okay. So we go to this place for a meeting. I'm told a woman wants to take me out for coffee to just talk about some of my problems. I said, okay. Then she drops the bomb. That my parents have left me. I'm here for at least the next 6 months. And I wasn't going anywhere. And when I found out my parents had deceived me, I was heartbroken. I started crying and crying. And I thought, how can my parents lie to me? I thought they loved me. And I realized now, they did it because they loved me. True love is being able to look your son dead in the eye, lie to his face, knowing that it's going to save his life. And it did. It saved my life. And it took me years to realize this. And I met a lot of very interesting people in this program, as you would. We had no contact with the outside world. No Facebook, no phone, no nothing. Freedom and independence totally stripped away. You couldn't go for a walk without an escort. That's how bad it was. But I met this kid. I'll never forget this kid. I lived with him, and we'll just call him Jimmy. Jimmy was 14 years old, and he had been through more than anyone else I'd ever met. When he was 12 years old, his mother was diagnosed with cancer, and he watched her slowly wither away and die during Christmas. His father had become an alcoholic and was drinking himself to death. Both of his grandparents had died, and both of his dogs died while he was in rehab. He was 14, and he'd seen more death than anyone I'd ever met in my life. And I remember one day we were watching a movie about a woman who was going through chemo and was dying, and Jimmy just freaked out. He started throwing chairs and tables and yelling and screaming and crying. And I just thought, wow, my life is not that bad. I had a family that loved and cared about me, that was alive. I had friends. I had siblings. I had a support system around me that wanted to help me. I realized that all my problems had stemmed from my own insecurities and my own mistakes. Perspective. Once I started counting my blessings, I realized how fortunate I really was. My anger went away. I realized there was nothing to be angry about. And when my anger went away, so did my depression. And when my depression went away, so did the urge to hurt myself. And all of a sudden, I was happy. In this program with no freedom, hanging out with kids who were messed out of their minds. And I was having a great time. And I was discharged 6 months after. And going into grade 11, everyone noticed how much happier I was. I wasn't depressed. I got along with everyone. I still wasn't getting along with my parents, though. I still wanted this independence and freedom they wouldn't grant me because I had hurt them so badly. So I treated them like dirt. And the negative thing about the program I was in is that I was surrounded by so many kids that just talked about hard drugs all the time. And not gateway drugs, hard, addictive drugs. And I got curious. So I decided to try some of these drugs, and I ended up really liking them. And I started to do them more and more. And then it got to the point where I couldn't go get a single day without getting high. So I started stealing from my friends, from my parents, any way I could get my drugs, I would do it. I was turning into an awful person. Now, I'd forgotten that I'd actually signed up to work at a Bible camp that summer. And I thought, how can I work at a Bible camp when I'm addicted to drugs? But something in me was like, Quinn, you have to go. This is not who you are. You need to get out of this environment. You have to. So I went. And you guys, the first week was awful. It was terrible. I was detoxing off all these different drugs. I think I drank 10 cups of coffee a day just to substitute. And by the time the drugs had all cleared out of my system, I got this clarity. And all of a sudden, I started to have a really good time. And we weren't doing things that normal teenagers would classify as a good time. We were washing dishes, scrubbing toilets, and babysitting bratty kids. But I was having the summer of my life without drugs. I realized I didn't need them. I had everything I needed. I had people that cared about me, that pushed me to be a better person. And I decided that I would never sink that low ever again. And I took that mindset with me going into grade 12. And grade 12 was the funnest year of high school, as most people will tell you. You're at the top of the school. It's awesome. Except, once again, not getting along with my parents. Still, I thought, I'm 17 years old. I should be allowed to stay out till whenever I want. I should be able to do whatever I want. I deserve this freedom. And my parents wouldn't let me have it, so I took it anyways. Basically said, up yours, I'm going to do what I want. And so they came to me and said, look, Quinn, if you want to live in this house, you have to follow by these rules. And I thought, whatever, I'm just going to call their bluff. They kicked me out. There I was, 17 years old, on the streets with nothing but a duffel bag full of juggling equipment and clothing, and the biggest wake-up call ever. I had no idea where to go or what to do. So I moved in with a friend of mine, an old friend of mine who I hadn't seen in a while, who was a drug addict. And the first night I got kicked out, I couldn't handle that freedom and responsibility, and I did every single drug I could get my hands on. And I remember wandering the streets at 6 a.m. in the morning by myself, tweaked out of my mind, just thinking, is this what the rest of my life is going to be like? Wandering the streets, hungry, high, and homeless? Am I going to be one of those people my parents always warned me I would be if I followed a life of drugs? And I thought, no, that's not who I'm going to be. This is the moment right now where I decide that's not how I'm going to live. So I cut off all ties to that friend I was living with. And you guys, if you want to be successful, you have to cut off the bad fruit. You just have to. And I'm not saying that you can't be friends with people who struggle with drugs or alcohol or gambling. What I'm saying is, if they're going to bring you down with them, they're not your true friends. And so I moved in with another friend of mine, and him and his partner supported me and fed me, put a roof over my head for the first month until I was able to get my own place. And I'd actually been accepted to be a part of an organization called Spark Circus. And Spark Circus takes circus artists, sends them to Thailand to do shows for refugees and orphans. And it was a completely voluntary program. You paid to get there, and you had to raise $1,000 for the cause. I thought, there's no way in heck I'm going to be able to go. I can barely make rent, let alone pay enough to go on this trip. So I decided I was just going to throw a fundraiser and donate whatever money I made to the circus. I raised $1,000 in one night. One night. Because I had a group of people that supported me. I thought, I have to go. There's no way I cannot go. So I started taking extra shifts at the restaurant. I was washing dishes. I was working in an old man's basement, as weird as that sounds. I was working at least 60 hours a week. But somehow, I was able to make enough to pay for my flight there and back, my food, my hospitality, and pay rent while I was gone. This is 3 months after being kicked out of my house with nothing. And I was on a plane to Thailand. And I thought, how did I get here? And I realized I got there because I had surrounded myself with good people. People who loved me. People who helped me strive to become a better person. And when I went to Thailand, I once again got this perspective that I had gotten from Jimmy. These kids that we were performing for had absolutely nothing. They were homeless. They didn't have food. Their parents had been murdered. They couldn't work or go to school. Yet they were 10 times happier than anyone else I knew in North America. Even though I was barely making rent and living off ramen noodles, my life was still 10 times better than theirs, and they were happier than me. Perspective. I took that perspective with me back to Canada, and I decided I was going to accept where I was at. I was going to stop feeling sorry for myself, and I was going to work hard to become the artist I wanted to be. So I started marketing myself. I got business cards, a website. I was doing this on top of the 60 hours a week that I was working. And all of a sudden, work started coming in. I got independent contracts. I got hooked up with a circus company on the island. I even got gigs from a circus company out of Toronto. And before I knew it, I was making a full income off of my passion, which had been my dream ever since I was 12 years old. I couldn't believe it. I was 100% independent. And what I realized was what my parents were trying to make me realize the whole time, was that independence and freedom isn't given, it's earned. Independence is hard work. And what I want to leave you with is to always remember, no matter how far down you are, no matter how low you've sunken, there's always a way out. Accept where you're at. Accept the help that's offered to you. There's always a way out. Also, I want you to remember that you can do anything you want in the world. It doesn't matter what anyone says. You can do anything you want as long as you work hard, stay dedicated, and surround yourself with good people. Thanks for listening, guys. You guys have been a terrific audience.